Welcome into BPN Fantasy, everybody. My name is Benson Fechter, and I'll be the host of your show today. BPN Fantasy is the Baseball Podcast Network's fantasy baseball show. If you're a fantasy baseball player or into baseball at all, you've came to the right place, and I hope you will enjoy this brand new debut podcast on the Baseball Podcast Network. You may recognize my voice. I host the Pirates podcast here at the Baseball Podcast Network, Bucko Booth, as well as the national podcast here, BPN Weekly. Some of you listeners, if you're listening live, may be jumping right from BPN Weekly into BPN Fantasy with that little 30-minute intermission we just took. If you are, thank you for sticking around with me for hour number 2. If not, we've got a lot of fantasy baseball to discuss, and I am happy you made it here. Now, if you do know me, if you listen to BPN Fantasy or Bucko Booth, apologize for going over who I am again. But again, my name is Benson Fechter to all you Newtown listeners. And, just a little bit about me. I'm a huge baseball fan, mainly the Pirates. But I follow baseball as a whole and in love with the sport. Been in love with the sport for as long as I can remember. The Pirates are definitely my passion as a team, but I'm going to be providing you the best baseball coverage from a national perspective for you fantasy players, rather than my little Pirates bias. And I'll try to keep that out of there as much as possible. But I also have some sneaky waiver finds for you guys, for Pirates guys, because I have them on my team. They produce, and some of these guys are not owned in many leagues, and you can go in there and you can pick them up. So I'll give you my 2 cents there where it comes to the Pirates, but otherwise I'll try to keep them out of this podcast as much as possible. That's what Bucko Booth is for, right? So just a little bit about the show and what we're going to be doing here. It's going to be a mix between waiver wires, what you can do with your fantasy team, just fun lists. You'll see with early on the show today, we do some fun lists, and you'll catch on early, and then we'll do certain player, perspectives, as well as looking at that, and then, maybe some historical tidbits. So 95% of the show is definitely going to be fantasy-based and fantasy-oriented to all you fantasy baseball players, and the goal is here for me to help you win your fantasy leagues. That is the goal. So, again, if you're a fantasy baseball player, you definitely came to the right place, and I'm happy you made it here, because it's going to be a weekly staple, hopefully, in your podcast rotation. You can always check me out again on Bucko Booth, the Pirates podcast, and BPN Weekly. They're both on Sunday, BPN Weekly and BPN Fantasy. So if you want to get your sort of national baseball coverage, which I'll be running on your fantasy baseball coverage, it's a nice way to ease yourself into, not only Sunday Night Baseball, which will be starting here for you guys that are listening live, and then, into your week of fantasy baseball as we get going with the next week tomorrow. I believe it'll be week 10 already. So time flies, and I'm so happy to be here with you, hosting your BPN Fantasy show today, and I'll be hosting it for the foreseeable future. A lot can happen over the course of an MLB regular season. That's why we try to resist prematurely jumping to conclusions with regard to player and team performance. Now that Memorial Day has passed, though, we can start putting more weight behind the numbers we have at our disposal. We're going to spotlight the best hitters and starting pitchers from May in a bit, but we're doing, the same for those right now on the opposite end of the spectrum. Once again, we're going to rank hitter performances by WRC+, while Skill Interactive ERA, Sierra, will be used for the starting pitchers. Sierra will likely showcase a group of unexpected hurlers, but that's the point. We want to get a little deeper than win-loss record and or ERA to find out who is pitching well and who really isn't, or who is headed full steam ahead for negative regression. Players in each group had to show up in the qualified sections in Fangraphs. It's safe to say that the following 10 players are happy the calendar slipped through June. We'll highlight the starting pitchers from 5th place to 1st place before we switching to look at the hitters in the same way. The statistic used, I'll discuss the statistic used to rank the players in one moment. So let's get into our first player, and it will be a pitcher. Brett Anderson, Oakland Athletics. May stats: 3-1 record, 11.3% strikeout rate, 9.7% walk rate, 3.34 ERA, 5.62 Sierra, and 0.1 F4 in 29 2/3 innings. Anderson's overall performance when looking at traditional stats is trending a little better than last year. However, his Sierra 5.49 is much higher than it was in 2018, 4.13. and that's mostly because of a huge rise in walks allowed. The veteran southpaw allowed free passes at a 3.9% clip last year, which made his 14.1% strikeout rate a little more bearable. He's whiffing hitters at a 12.2% clip right now, which is a little tougher to swallow with a 9.1% walk rate. Many of his other peripherals, such as his batted ball profile, look similar to what he produced in 18, along with some improvements in certain areas. He's been able to combat that increased frequency of walks by holding opposite hitters to a 271 BABIP and stranding runners at a 74.7% rate. The big test moving forward will be how many innings he can accrue while staying effective. Anderson has already accumulated 60 and 2/3 frames and tossed 80 and a third last year. But he hasn't thrown more than that since 2015 when he finished with 180 and a third for the Los Angeles Dodgers. If you have Brett Anderson on your team, it might be time to start looking for some trades. Ronaldo Lopez, Chicago White Sox. May stats, 1-2 record, 13.7% strikeout rate, 7.8% walk rate, 6.35 ERA, 5.76 SIERA, and 0.0 F4 in 34 innings. Outside of that dominant 14 strikeout performance on April 28th against the Detroit Tigers, Lopez hasn't really had a great season for the White Sox. This could likely be some negative regression catching up to him, though. He did post a 3.91 ERA through 188 and 2/3 innings in 2018, but it was also accompanied with a 4.92 SIERA, thanks to an 18.9% strikeout rate, 9.4% walk rate, and 260 BABIP allowed. The Hurlers' homers allowed per 9 innings has soared to 2.07 off the strength of an increased fly ball rate, 47.1% to 51.2%, and hard hit rate allowed, 33.7% to 39%. One noticeable change in Lopez's pitch mix is centered on his changeup, which is up at 20.8%. It was 15.5% in 18. The results haven't been great for him, but they have been for opposing hitters. They own a 333 average, 357 OBP, and a 615 slugging, line with a 161 WRC+. If you still have no Lopez on your roster, definitely drop him. Antonio Zensatella, Colorado Rockies. May stats, 1-3 record, 12.9% strikeout rate, 10.7% walk rate, 6.98 ERA, 5.78 SIERA, and a negative .2 F4 in 29 and 2/3 innings. Zensatella was actually tied with Ronaldo Lopez in SIERA at the time of this show. But the Rockies' hurler gets a nod because his ERA, strikeout rate, and walk rate were all worse. This rough month actually negates the decent start Zensatella got off to in March and April. Through his first 18 and a third innings, he owned a 3.93 ERA. While there hasn't been a huge shift in BABIP from one month to the next, 316 to 323, there has been a noticeable shift in his batted ball profile. Although the initial hard contact was already a red flag, especially since he has to pitch at Coors Field, the rest is just bad gravy on top. Zensatella is not going to be the kind of pitcher everyone will want on their fantasy baseball team, but he has been effective at times in the past. With his hard rate increasing and strikeout rate decreasing so far in each of the last 3 years, those who hold a positive opinion on him may keep dwindling. If it's up to me, drop Zensatella on your fantasy roster right now. Sandy Alcantara, Miami Marlins. May stats, 1-2 record, 15.5% strikeout rate, 13% walk rate, a 3.23 ERA, 5.78 SIERA, and a 0.1 F4 in 30 and 2/3 innings. This is one of the two pitchers where you look at some of the traditional stats, mainly his 3.23 May ERA, and wonder what the heck he's doing here. Well, just look at the other peripherals that I mentioned earlier. They're not pretty. He would have been on this list last month, and although he has lifted his strikeout rate a bit, it's been accompanied with a higher walk rate. Walking that many runners without an elite strikeout rate and an inflated strand rate, 64.9% in March and April, 78.8% in May, on a team that isn't an offensive juggernaut, might not end well. We do have some silver lining to cover, though. Alcantara's quality of contact has consistently improved and is currently sitting at career best levels, 23.2% soft hit rate and 28.8% hard hit rate. Although his 11.4% walk rate is still too high, it's at least moving in the right direction. The number was 15.8% through 34 innings last year in Miami. if you have Sandy Alcantara on your team right now, I suggest selling, start looking for some trades. Brad Keller, Kansas City Royals. May stats, 1-3 record, 13.3% strikeout rate, 14.1% walk rate, 5.28 ERA, 6.01 SIERA, and a 0.4 F4 in 29 innings. Keller is also, he's on this list. If there was one last month, it would be the second month in a row. His March/April ERA wasn't too bad, 4.07, but his peripherals signal negative regression was coming. Judging by how this past month went, it arrived in full force. As a hurler, that doesn't own a blistering fastball, 92.7 mile per hour average velocity in 19. It's important for his control to be always be on point. That hasn't been the case, as his season-long walk rate, 13.3%, is nearly as high as his strikeout rate at 15.2%. It doesn't help that both his first pitch strike rate, 59% to 55.6%, and zone rate, 40.8% to 37.2%, have gotten worse. Those numbers help explain why opposing hitters are chasing just 27.2% of Keller's pitches outside the strike zone. He was predominantly a fastball slider hurler during last year's rookie campaign, but has veered toward that even more heavily in 2019. His fastball usage has gone down about 7 percentage points, while his slider usage has gone from 26.2% to 34.8%. Hitters have produced just a 42 WRC plus against that pitch. That's paired with a 149 WRC plus against four-seamers and a 143 WRC plus against sinkers, though. If you have Mr. Keller, it's time to drop him on your fantasy rosters. All right, let us get into the hitters. Yonder Alonso, Chicago White Sox. May stats have 539 OPS, 087 ISO, 2 home runs, 12 RBIs, good for a 46 WRC plus, and 116 plate appearances. Alonso has gone on quite the downward trend since experiencing his power breakout in 2017. He posted a 2.4 F4 with 28 home runs that season, followed by a 0.7 F4 and 23 homers last year for the Cleveland Indians, before his current negative 0.6 F4 and 7 dingers through 216 plate appearances. His WRC plus over this time has also gone on a rather precipitous drop during that period, 133, 97, 69. The infielder's fly ball rate has managed to remain above 40%, but his ground ball rate has gone from 33.9% to 38.3% to 42.1%. This increase is coming at the expense of his line drive rate, which is currently 17.9%. The first time it's been below 20% since 2014, when he was at 18.8%. It also appears he's pressing at the plate after taking a peek at his plate discipline numbers. After posting a walk rate of 16%, higher than his strikeout rate of 15% in March and April, his walk rate has plummeted to 9.5%, while his strikeout rate has soared to 27.6% in May. If you have Mr. Alonso, I would suggest dropping him. Leonys Martin, Cleveland Indians. May stats have 540 OPS, 060 ISO, 1 homer, 5 RBIs, good for a 42 WRC plus and 92 plate appearances. The Indians came into this year with a number of questions in their outfield, and things haven't gone so well. Case in point is Martin, who's produced in limited time last season, a 2.5 F4, 103 WRC plus, and 353 plate appearances, but has fallen off a lot so far in 2019. 0 F4, 70 WRC plus, and 212 plate appearances. Where has he experienced this downturn in production? Although his strikeout rate has jumped 7 percentage points and is well over his 22.6% career rate, a lot of his struggles appear to be coming in his batted ball profile. Martin posted a career-high 37.9% hard hit rate last season. That number is down at 30.8% at the moment, and it's likely because of a sky-high 26.5% infield fly rate. It's way too high. If you have Leonys Martin, please drop him right now. Colton Wong, St. Louis Cardinals. 510 OPS, 102 ISO, 2 homers, good for a 10 RBIs, good for a 37 WRC plus, and 97 plate appearances. Wong entered May with a 128 WRC plus, a 272 average, 390 OBP, and a 467 slugging. But what he did it and the 97 plate appearances that followed completely erased a solid start to 2019. The second baseman has been two different kinds of hitters depending on where he's playing. On the road, he's